Catch Landline Now every night at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, along with an encore presentation weekdays at noon, right here on tncradio.live.
Welcome in on a Wednesday night, tncradio.live. We are live on April the 26th, 2023, and this is Keep On Talking. And now here are your hosts, Christine Gray and Tom Kirk.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom Kelly. I'm Tom Kirk, and I'm joined, as always, with the lovely Miss Christine Gray. How are you doing today, Christine?
I'm doing great. How are you guys tonight?
I am doing well, and as do each and every week here on TNC Radio around this time, we've gathered around that counter of knowledge. You know, back before the pandemic, when you could still find a good truck stop restaurant that had that driver's area, you know, we'd get together at the driver's table or the counter and share thoughts and talk about the latest news and a whole bunch of other things that was going on in the trucking industry. And just, you know, have some fellowship, but, you know, really talk a lot about the headlines or what things that were bothering us on our mind. And man, do we have a headline today, breaking news, for lack of a better term, out of California. California might actually be nice to truck drivers. I know that's a shock, but if you want to participate in tonight's conversation, you can do that at 706-862-8620. And this breaking news, shall we say, is there's a bill outlawing self-driving trucks without a human driver on board advancing in California. It's Bill AB 316, which just left the California Assembly Communications and Conveyance Committee. Say that one 3 times fast. That has bipartisan support and is heading for the Assembly Appropriations Committee. And basically what this is going to do is state that if you have an autonomous vehicle that's over 10,000 pounds, there must be a human driver, safety driver, physically inside the vehicle. And they're working with the California Department of Motor Vehicles to, or actually, let me rephrase that. The California Department of Motor Vehicles is currently considering new rules that would allow the testing of these medium and heavy duty vehicles without a human driver. And what I think is even more shocking to me than that, California is proposing that there does have to be a driver in these automated trucks, is one of the reasons why they're doing it. Earlier this year, they were having some testimony from the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association, and they basically imply that our nation's and the state's professional and skilled drivers are drunk, texting, and pose a deathly risk to the public. And this is a quote from Assembly member Cecilia Aguilar Curry, who's a Democrat. I hope I said that name right. But she was actually appalled because she realizes that most truck drivers do their best to be safe, operate in a professional manner, and are trying to be safe out there. And I'm sure we're going to get into some of the numbers later on tonight about the percentages of accidents that are caused by regular drivers, not by commercial vehicles. So, you know, there's a lot to unpack in this. And, you know, I'm going to actually kick this over to you, Christine. What are some of your thoughts of this? I mean, let's just start off with the fact that California is attempting to do something right by drivers.
So first, yeah, you're absolutely right. That's rare to begin with. I mean, ever, because normally California is the first one to go against drivers. They mandate everything against us first. But it was Dee Winters, Democrat Winters, who'd actually spoken out. And Cecilia Curry, whatever her name is, she's the one who countered it. And you're right. She's definitely come out opposing and put AB 316 has come to light. I think that everything that she has said based on the fact that, we want to have a human being in the seat no matter what, because that's what the autonomous idea was. It was to get drivers out. They want drivers, they want the trucks to drive by themselves. And to have a senator or a congressman or whatever, an assemblyman, to turn around and say, hey, we want a human being in here no matter what, in control of the vehicle. I believe that, she's on the right path. Somebody finally spoke up for common sense, which is what we've all been saying all along. Common sense. Where was it? There wasn't any the whole time. It's like, if you read the articles that are going on, they keep pushing the autonomous. Autonomous doesn't win out when it comes to making those snap decisions we've all talked about repeatedly, that they can't make those snap decisions that we do. That choose between life and a death, that choose between that life or the left lane or the right lane or whatever the case may be. It's going to choose a mechanical decision, not a ethical one.
Oh, I mean, it can only be as ethical as it was programmed to. And we may, if depending on how the night goes, bring Tom Kelly in a little bit to talk about some of that, because at the end of the day, an autonomous truck is only as good as what's put into it by the programmers. And, I'm a truck driver. I don't know a lot about computer programming, but I know people who do. So we'll maybe try to get into that a little bit tonight. We've already got a bunch of people on here, but we still have room for you at 706-862-8620. We're going to start off with a person we haven't heard from in a little bit. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very good.
Well, okay, I'm going to ask the first question here. What was your reaction to the fact that California is at least attempting to do something semi-positive towards drivers? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying autonomous trucks in any way is positive, but at least saying, wait a second, let's put the brakes on some of this here. And, drivers really are not the way some people are trying to portray them.
Well, I posted that article today, and the headline I wrote was, "Oh my God, California finally got something right." So yeah, that's a good thing that they want this. And you both talked about the fact that a computer doesn't know how to take the ditch when it needs to. And I think you guys know that we've done a lot of work with Too Simple out of Arizona. We had them on our radio show, and we actually visited their facility and had some conversations with them. And when we had, I think his name was Robert Brown on the show, he admitted that they did not know how to literally kill themselves, but they were learning, and they were learning the Smith system. Well, when we were to be in control, is it being in control of the truck, or is it for liability purposes if we crash?
My understanding from what I have read, it would be a safety driver that could take over in various situations, but I'm also not certain if that has been fully defined yet. Would you agree with that, Christine?
Yes, agreed. I mean, for the most part, I think that anytime, if you think about it, anytime you have an autonomous vehicle, who's the insurance going to blame?
Who's ever sitting in the driver's seat. And this has already been proved out in the court case that's in Arizona, where there was not one but three different people from the autonomous company in the car. And somebody got run over and killed. And the woman who was sitting behind the steering wheel is probably going to jail.
Exactly. So there's where your insurance... There's where your insurance claim starts from. So
coming back.
2, 1. Welcome back in TNC Radio.live. This is Keep On Talking. Here's Tom Kirk.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom Kelly. And the conversation has been continuing on behind the scenes. And there's a quick issue that actually Lisa brought up before we get to Jerry Fritz and some of his experience with some of the predecessors of the modern technology. Lisa, you were bringing up one of your concerns is, okay, if somebody's in the driver's seat, what's the purpose? Are they going to be a scapegoat? Are they going to be a safety driver? What is their purpose? Do you want to go a little bit more into depth on that?
Well, I personally think they want them there for the blame. They want somebody to be held accountable. With an autonomous truck, there's not a person you can blame. So it's going to be that driver. And if you are sitting in a truck and you're not doing anything, you're not shifting, you're not looking, your tendency is going to be play on your phone. And we can see that with drivers now. So they're not going to be at the ready to take over at any given second. So they'll get the blame.
And I think you're right on that. And that, like I said, right at the beginning, I says it on the surface, it does look like this assembly person is trying to do the right thing. Particularly in calling out the Autonomous Vehicle Industry Association for their implications that, truck drivers are basically, well, how shall we phrase it politely, bags of excrement, and is trying to stand up for drivers. But the other thing is, whenever you're dealing with politicians, could there be other motives? And that's hard to say. But, as Tom Kelly mentioned off air, there is already court cases where it does look like in various accidents involving other autonomous vehicles where there has been fatalities that the person behind the wheel, the safety driver, if they feel they're at fault, they're the ones that are going to be looking at the jail time and getting into deep trouble. So that's also, I think, another concern for drivers as well, is if the equipment malfunctions, who has the liability? And from everything I've read, it is leaning onto the driver, even if they have no way to override it. So that's a scary thing that I also think needs to be brought up with bills like this from a driver's perspective of saying, hey, this is a step in the right direction, but have you considered these things that could also impact drivers? And some lessons that I think we can learn a little bit from some of the past. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but Jerry, I know way back when you did some driving for Landstar and were asked to be, I believe, one of the test beds or work with a radar system way back in the day. If you can tell us just a little bit about that system and some of the problems that you felt it had.
Yeah, I was the first truck was VORAD. I was in San Diego the day that Eaton bought VORAD. It took them 3 days to install in the truck. It was quite a bit, and I learned quite a bit about all this. What happened, it's a radar beam that shoots out in front of your truck. The objective is to be able to see by radar 4 seconds ahead. The figure takes about 3 seconds or whatever to get stuff, forget the exact numbers. Well, what came out of this, and the last I knew, they never have straightened out this problem. And a friend of mine just a few months ago is with a carrier, and they're having a hell of a problem with it. It produces a ghost signal. On the new trucks back when I was testing it, field testing it, they knew they could hook it up brakes, but they weren't ready to do that yet. But all the new systems are hooked up to the brake. So when it sees something that it feels is important, it slams the brakes on. Fact is, often there's nothing there. They don't know where these come from. Me and an engineer, he had a computer he sat on his lap. We ran back and forth between San Diego and someplace Arizona out there. Made 2 trips back and forth because they thought it had to do with reflections off of bridges, guardrails, and all up over Interstate 8 there. You got all those rocks. We couldn't make it happen. Nobody's been able to make it happen. And yet it can take complete control away from the vehicle. And what I've been telling the engineers, the science people, if I'm across South Dakota today and I come on one of those ground blizzards, where suddenly you're holding your breath and praying that you can keep it under control. What if it sees something that isn't there and slams on your brakes?
Well,
I was at a big safety conference with 200 carriers. Well, you got ABS. No. You people are desk jockeys. I don't care if you got ABS. A sudden application of brakes under those extreme conditions, you're still off the road.
And Jerry, I'm going to jump in here real quick if I can, with a modern example of exactly what you're talking about. I was going down I-81 in out of Binghamton towards Scranton, down around the Hartford, New Milford area, and they were doing some paving on the road, new pavement, and was in one of those areas there where you had a bit of a mountainside on one side, and there was a shiny tanker truck sitting off, and this was at night, bit of mist, so the road was a little bit slick, but sitting off to the side, well out of the way. Well, I'm coming around the corner, and it catches this truck sitting on the shoulder, and it does what it does. If it thinks you're going to hit something, it hits the brakes. And every driver dreads this feeling, this momentary weightless that you get on the seat of your pants when you realize that something is breaking loose, whether you're going into a jackknife, whether it's one of the other things where it creates the same basic effect, you know it there. Now, the one thing I will say with the newer trucks, they have this fancy system in now that's supposed to keep you from jackknifing. And I can hear the puff from all around me, from all these different brakes activating individually to bring the truck back into a line. So I will say that one safety system worked as intended. The problem is it never would have had to activate if the other system had a malfunction. And here's the best part is whenever it activates, it's supposed to send a signal to my safety department saying that, your dumbass driver did something where I had to do an emergency braking maneuver. It never sent them the signal because the computer realized, oops, I goofed. I shouldn't have done that. So it never sent a signal. But particularly if you're down around exit 217 on I-81, if any engineer ever listens to this, drive through there regularly with one of these trucks. It doesn't happen all the time, but with more regularity than I care to admit, as you're going under the bridge here, either the 217 or 219, it will activate with absolutely nothing in front of you. And I've had engineers tell me that it can't happen. Well, I have witnesses and multiple drivers driving different trucks who will say it can almost in exactly the same place every time. So it is a real problem that's out there. I know we haven't come to you guys yet. We're coming up on another break. Bruce, let's go to you. Have you had any experience with these ghosts or these malfunctions?
Yes, I have. Okay.
And do you have one that sticks out in your head?
Yes. Going down the road, going down the interstate, car in front of you moves over to the get-off lane. He's not in front of you anymore. All of a sudden, your brakes come on because, they think he's still in front of you, and he's slowing down pretty quick. I've learned to, I see it happening. I prepare myself now. As soon as I think it, what I do is I just put my foot on the fuel pedal because it overrides it. Mm-hmm. I've also been underneath a bridge abutment or even in construction where the green light comes up and says collision warning, but the brakes don't come on. It just tells me collision warning, and there's nothing there.
And these are real problems. And in my personal opinion, it feels like when you talk to safety or certain other things, I know at one point safety was saying, well, can you mark down whenever this happens? And I finally looked at him when he says, how am I supposed to? I'm going down the road. You want me to put down the mileage? You want me to put down the time? How am I supposed to do this and be safe while driving. And you're saying this to your safety director. And he just all of a sudden gets that deer in the headlights look and kind of goes, boo. So these are some of the things, is these are tools that I can see potential in sometime down the road. Do I think the technology is there? No, it is not. So that, these are some very real problems. Hey, Dutch, real quick, have you ever had a problem with any of these ghosts in the machine?
Yeah, I have. I have one in my truck right now, and I keep telling my boss and my safety department, you need to do something. I hit a bump. And it has to do. It's works. It's the Bendix system. It works with the cruise, and the cruise shuts off. Or I'm going underneath the overpass, and all of a sudden I get a hard brake. And I mean this truck will brake from 60 to like 20 in like a second, and it scared. I had a passenger in the truck, my fiance, and she was like, "What the hell is that all about?" And I said, "That's the Bendix system. I told you I had a problem with it." And they keep saying, "Well, we fixed it, we reprogrammed it, but it still does it." It's like if a butterfly, say, farts in front of it, or a bird comes in front of it, or whatever, it will go off because it just thinks that something is there when there's nothing there. I mean, I've had it go off when there's nothing around, and all of a sudden it just makes me jolt, and I'm like, and then I get a phone call from safety. What happened? Well, why don't you look at my dash cam, because they have one. It's all intertwined. I mean, it's the dash cam and this. So basically, the dash cam scans, and so there's the thing on the bumper. Something ain't right with it. I mean, I was with Hirschbach when they first were testing it there, and I told them there was a problem with it because I had the same problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's nationwide. If for some reason they don't know how to. Eden, whoever owns the rights to it, don't know how to program it right. I don't know. Because my thing is, if you can't control your own truck, why should you have to have something like a radar control it for you? There are systems. I talked to a friend of mine. His system will tell him how fast that car in front of him was going. I would like to know that, because that will help you slow down.
Mine does that.
Well, guys, I got to jump.
That's pretty nice.
I got to jump in here because we're coming up on a break, and we've already pushed it a couple of times. But if you want to participate, we still got room for you, 706-862-8620. We are talking a little bit about autonomous vehicle nights and some California regulations that would put a safety driver in heavy-duty vehicles. And the fact that California, at least on some level, is standing up for drivers in this particular situation. But we'll be back with more right after this. Keep your ears on.
Hi, I'm Dr. Christopher Cortman, and now for the Mental Health Minute. Are you a control freak? Do you like to be in control? I think control has very negative connotations in our culture. But I want to use this first video of Are You a Control Freak to talk about when control is a good thing and why you should be in control. Let's begin with, there are 3 parts of your life that are important to control. What you think, what you say, and what you do. Those 3 things belong to you, and you should control them as much as possible. For instance, what you think. As St. Paul once wrote, take every thought captive. Your thoughts, your mind belongs to you, and it's important to decide where you want to focus and what you want to focus on. So the research says, let's focus on things like positivity and optimism, like gratitude.
Be sure to listen to Building Strong Minds with Dr. Chris, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, right here on tncradio.live.
tncradio.live, your commercial driver navigation station.
We're all about the news, information, entertainment, talk radio, music, comedy, and topics truckers want to hear. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with retired NASA engineer Homer Hickam, who's the author of Rocket Boys, which inspired the movie October Sky. We're talking with Alex Debegorsky. He's one of the original stars of Ice Road Truckers. Chip Davis of Mannheim Steamroller. Music icon and Grammy Award-winning country artist Lee Greenwood. We're speaking with racing legend Mario Andretti. Michael Martin Murphey is a legend on the music scene with wonderful ballads and hits like Wildfire and Cowboy Logic. Curtis Grimes.
Michael McDowell, the 2021 Daytona 500 winner.
Our guest this afternoon is Tom Bodett. You know the name, you know the voice.
The Carolina Monkey Gouger, Jimmy Artis. Today we have the honor of speaking again with Long Haul Paul. Today we have Claire Dunn and Logan Mize with us. Stay tuned and stay safe with TNCRadio.live. Hey drivers, did you hear music on TNCRadio.live that you really liked? Or maybe you heard us interview an author of a book you'd like to read or listen to. You can get the books, music, and other products you hear about by going to our website at www.tncradio.live and clicking on the shopping cart.
Like letting go of negativity, forgiveness. The research is full of take control of your head, be mindful, be in the here and now. That's all about taking control of what you think. And what you say, you are in charge of what comes out of your mouth. And what comes out of your mouth should be something that is commensurate with what you believe. The tongue should be used as something to edify people, to promote people, never to tear them down or to destroy them. What comes out of my mouth is my control. And also what I do, that's mine to control. And let me encourage you, take control of what you consume. That is what you eat, that is what you watch, what you read, that's yours. Because whatever comes in, that's what comes out. That's what you process. So I want to encourage you also to take control of your schedule. Are you productive? Are you getting things done? Are your days meaningful? Because your schedule is yours to control. So let me begin with control, when you use it in the proper way, is a very good thing for people who are happy and productive. In the next video, I want to talk about when control is not a good thing.
And welcome back in on a Wednesday night. This is TNCRadio.live, and you're listening to Keep On Talkin' with Tom Kirk and Christine Gray.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom Kelly. It's good to be here, and we're glad to have you with us tonight. We're talking a little bit about some proposed legislation in California that would have safety drivers with autonomous trucks if they had a gross vehicle weight of over 10,000 pounds, some of the good and bad with that, but also some of the experiences we've had on our own with autonomous vehicles. But we've got some breaking news from our news desk. So let's go over to our newsroom with Tom Kelly and see what there is there. Tom.
All right, Tom, thanks. This is just coming in yesterday, Tuesday, April the 25th, 2023. I name everybody who is going to be in a position where they're going to have any kind of autonomous anything put on their truck. You need to know the name and be watching the story of Rafaela Vasquez. Rafaela Vasquez, 46, out of Tempe, Arizona. She's 49 now. She's 46 when the accident took place a couple of years ago. This was the first death involving a pedestrian involving a self-driving vehicle. And prosecutors last year said that Uber is not to blame. The car is not to blame. The technology is not to blame. The only person to blame is the safety driver who was looking at her phone, as was suggested earlier, actually watching an episode of The Voice. And when she looked up, a woman was walking a bicycle across the street and was outside of the crosswalk. And so the car ran over, killed her. And so they have, yesterday, pleaded not guilty, and they reset the trial to start in June. So that's the latest and greatest. Is the start, or the trial will start in June, and she is being charged with. I had that right here in front of me, but I get too much open. Negligent homicide.
Ooh.
So understand too that the FMCSA also put out this week, late last week, that they are doing a study. What do they call it? They're setting up a study, whatever, to determine how long does it take between the time that a driver is told you need to take over and the time they can actually take over. And is that sufficient time to actually be able to take over?
That is and I think we actually talked about that a while back here on this show, or at least a similar study that they were setting up where, we were saying, wait a second, the way they've got this study designed, it's a relatively short period of time. I think it was like 3 or 4 hour driving shifts. And I think everybody on here, and I think Bruce was the one who said they need to be doing, 8, 11 hour driving shifts, much more like you'd see in the real world of what a truck driver would actually do to get a better feel. So and over a longer period of time. So it's not as much the novelty of playing a video game or expecting, hey, what's going to happen when, knowing something's going to happen, making it a little bit more realistic. So, yeah, Tom, that there's a lot of breaking news on this that we need to follow. But I think, and this is a question that I've been raising with companies for a long time. If this equipment malfunctions and I don't have an override, what am I supposed to do? And no one can give me an answer. And what I think this may come down to, and I'm going to throw it out here to our callers in a minute to see if they think it's going to get to this point where drivers are going to have to make a decision. Is this equipment safe or not? And are we going to have to invoke the federal regulation that basically says if we don't feel equipment is safe, we legally are not allowed to drive it till we feel the necessary repairs have been made. Are we approaching a point with this technology where we as drivers may have to say, wait a second, we don't think it's safe, we don't trust it, federal law says I can't drive it. I think the first question I'm going to ask you here is, do we even think the drivers are willing to stand up and do that? And I'm going to go with you, Dutch, because we haven't talked to you much tonight. I'll start off with you. Do you think drivers, are we approaching a point where they may just say, you know what, this isn't safe, and invoke that federal regulation?
It could happen. I mean, yeah, I do. I really do think that could happen. Because if it was me and they said, well, you either drive this autonomous truck or you lose your job, well, I'll lose my job, but I'll make sure that someone else is going down with me, because it's just wrong. I mean, you cannot force somebody to say, hey, just like a mutual friend of ours, TJ Granny, she comes on the show once in a while, and I know her personally, and she told me when she showed me that autonomous truck, and she's like, I wasn't safe because it wasn't 100% like they're trying to put out now, but still had other safety issues that she didn't like. And she's just like, I told the boss that if it has to be, it has to be. I mean, I don't want to work for a company that's forcing me to do something I don't want to do. Which is like, for instance, like your logs. If you're gonna have a company say, well, you gotta run over your logs today, you gotta make this load. No, I'm the captain of the ship, not you. I'm the one who's making this load on time. I'm the one who's dealing with traffic, dealing with weather, dealing with law enforcement, not them behind the desk. So if they're going to tell you, well, you got to drive this or you lose your job, I'll lose my job, but someone's going down with me.
Well, and there are some protections if a driver says they feel a vehicle's not safe and the company tries to make them drive. There are some protections for there. Now, are they enough? That's a conversation for a completely different night. And I know there's a few more things I want to get to tonight, so we're going to try and go through this quick. Christine, we'll go to you. Do you think we're approaching a point where drivers are going to say, hey, this isn't safe, I refuse to drive this?
I think your old timers will. I think the new breed that's coming out, they won't care. They really won't. They're steering wheel holders.
Well,
Get in behind.
Is it you think that they don't care, or that they're so used to technology doing so many other things for them, they don't see the pitfalls in the same way somebody with years and millions of miles of driving defensively are going, wait a second, this isn't safe, because they don't have that experience?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, sit down and talk with one or two of these new drivers coming out. They don't see it the way that we see it. They don't look at it the way that we see it. They see all that new technology as an advancement. It's great for them, we can drive anything. It's an automatic, great. It's got I had one lady scared the absolute life out of me. She said that it had lane departure on it. Because it had lane departure on it, she didn't have to worry about driving off the road.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
So on that note, Bruce, let's go to you. Do you think we're approaching a point where drivers are just going to say this isn't safe, and federal regulations say we can't drive an unsafe vehicle? I'm parking it.
I agree. Older hands out here will do it. The newer ones coming in, not so much. But you mentioned something when you were talking to Tom about Plan B. Okay? Now, when I was at the truck show, there was a truck, Freightliner, that had the cameras outside. No mirrors, just the cameras. Okay? And guy says, yes, it's been approved through FMCSA, the whole 9 yards. Well, I got in the truck just to see what it was like. Well, my wife, being who she is, was outside talking to the guy. And she says, what's your plan B? And he says, well, what do you mean? She says, what happens if the cameras go down? It's electronics. It's going to fail. What's your plan B? You have no mirrors. You know what his answer was? We didn't think of that. We don't have one.
Yeah.
That's coming from somebody at the show. And I won't tell you, you probably all know which company it was that had the truck like that.
I know which one of two people it was who said that, and I'm not going to go any further there. But that's one of the things that I think is a real concern. Is everybody involved, particularly some of and a few years ago, if you'd asked me on some of this technology, I saw the potential in it, particularly collision mitigation systems, where it could have the potential, let's say if a driver had a heart attack, to maybe bring the truck to a stop safely, or possibly guide it to his shoulder, something of that nature, where if the driver was unresponsive in a certain way. But the thing is, the benefits that I could see for that are being outweighed by a lot of these concerns. And the problem is we're not being listened to. We need to go to a break. We're going to come up and wrap things up here after that. We got some more great programming coming on tonight with Larry and Angie with Taillights coming up next. And then after that, it's going to be Anderson and Banker with Clutch Time Sports. But we're going to wrap up here right after this. Stay tuned to TNC Radio. We'll be right back. Keep your ears on.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
It's Landline Now, followed by Steve Summers' Overnight Drive every night on TNCRadio.live starting at 11 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. Central.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is boosting the image of the industry by telling the story of trucking, and your story can be part of it. Upload a photo, tell us what you love about trucking, or send us a story about a good deed or charitable act in trucking. Be sure to follow us on social media and contact us through truckingmovesamerica.com. That's truckingmovesamerica.com.
And welcome back in TNCRadio.live. Keep on talking. Here's your host, Tom Kurt.
Hey, thank you very much, Tom. And we're back here wrapping things up. We've got just a few minutes here before the top of the hour. Flo's giving me that look because we've had a bunch of great conversation tonight. And it was so good. We made a decision with our group of originals here who are calling almost every week, myself and my co-host Christine. We're going to continue this conversation next week. So stay tuned, tell your friends. There's a lot more we can cover on this, but one of the things that I want to wrap up tonight with a little bit is getting back to what inspired this. This was an article that we found in CDL Life about California legislator and Bill AB 316, which she basically is saying Assemblywoman Cecilia Aguilar Curry. I believe I said that right. She's a Democrat out of Winters, California, but is pretty much basically telling people, hey, there's some groups that are coming in here testifying that truck drivers are unsafe, and that's why we need more autonomous vehicles. And you know what? Drivers do their best. They may not be perfect, but they've done a lot for here. And in fact, CHP just gave a whole bunch of credit to a bunch of truck drivers and RVers who pulled under a bridge where there was a pedestrian that was thinking about committing suicide by jumping onto the highway. And they basically pulled their vehicles under the bridge. So if they did decide to jump, they wouldn't have as far to fall. And this is an example of things that drivers do all the time, good out there, whether it is the highway heroes of saving lives at an accident, helping police officers that are maybe being attacked, or situations like this. How are autonomous trucks going to do that? And that's something you don't hear about. You hear about drivers to help prevent human trafficking. How are these autonomous vehicles going to do that? So there's a lot more we can unpack, and there's some experiences that Jerry has had with some of this equipment going into the past and comparing it to what we're experiencing now, where we can learn a little bit from. But we need to reach out to these state legislators. We as drivers need to help educate not them, but the public as well about how we are responsible professionals. So those are some of the topics we're going to be covering up here in the future. But I want to encourage you, take a look at CDL Life. The article is called, make sure I pull up the right one here, Bill Outlawing Self-Driving Trucks Without a Human Driver on Board Advances in California. This was done on April the 25th. So that came out yesterday. I encourage you to read that article. Reach out to the councilman, Cecilia Aguilar Curry. Tell her, hey, thanks for getting some of this, but we do have concerns. Is if there is a safety driver and the equipment does malfunction, what's the liability for the driver, especially if they're doing everything right? There is a study out there from the FMCSA where they're looking for comments. This one actually came out on April 25th from the trucker. Take a look at that. That's something that is definitely worth looking and commenting on about how to do this study. So we encourage you to do all that. Our friends over at the Trucker, as well as over at CDL Life, are doing a lot of coverage on this. And this is something where we as drivers need to be very proactive and respond to these comment periods. And when a legislator gets it right, or at least gets some of it right, tell them, hey, we appreciate what you're trying to do. And here's a few other tips, but I'm getting the signal we need to go. We're definitely going to get more into this next week. So we will see you next week here on the radio on tncradio.live. For Tom Kirk, Christine Gray, and Tom Kelly, we wish you well. Be safe out there.
Do you have the tncradio.live app? It's free and easy to download. Just go to app.tncradio.live, Google Play, or the App Store. Get access to live streaming radio developed by drivers for drivers. Download the tncradio.live app today.
Don't forget, you can hear all of our TNC Radio primetime shows again on our podcasts. Just go to tncradio.live/podcasts or search for tncradio.live wherever you listen to podcasts.